And we weren't saying the word union, but we were all, at least in the DC company, we were all kind of like, something like that needs to happen. We don't know what the first steps are to take. Something to note, during this time, the different cities were not really talking very much. There was not much of a national contact with each other. We would kind of just hear things through our director, like, oh, New York is doing this, and oh, New York or Chicago saw a video of you guys doing this and they thought it was funny. That was about as much contact as we had. A couple cast members would either maybe know someone through a friend of a friend, but there wasn't much contact between the cities at this time. So we kind of had no idea whether or not this was normal or typical behavior of Drunk Shakespeare. Management definitely kind of led us to believe, like, oh, this never happens to anyone else. Like, that you guys really just got a bad rap this weekend. And we were kind of like,
sure.
We were like, I don't know. We're starting to maybe.
Yeah, it's always the first time that this has ever happened. This is wild. It never happens. The other locations, never. You're an anomaly. Yeah.
Yep. That is how, for a month, we kind of kept being like, hey, what do you do when this happens in another city? And they're like, oh, well, it doesn't really happen in another city. Like, they would definitely kind of like brush it off. And we were definitely starting to get this kind of like vibe that they didn't want us talking to the other cities.
Shocker.
Yeah.
They don't want you comparing notes. I wouldn't know why.
Interesting indeed. But yeah, so at this time we felt very on our own. We didn't really know what to do. And we were like, okay, we're just going to have a meeting with management and kind of tell them how unsupported we felt this weekend and kind of add in some of these other issues that we have been having. Drunk Shakespeare, unfortunately, has a history of not being very consistent with scheduling. One week you might be scheduled for 3 or 4 shows. The next week you might be at 10 shows. And then the following week they'll be like, just kidding, how about 1? And we were kind of starting to be like bothered by these inconsistencies, especially as it became more unsustainable when we went from only doing 5 shows a week to 12 shows a week. They like very quickly like built up that number through between like the months of November and March. And while they were ramping up those number of shows, they were not adding any additional support. We didn't have extra stage managers. We didn't have any extra staff. I think we hired 1 new actor in that time frame. And a lot of us were really starting to feel the weight of just a lack of support from them. And we were like, we need to ask for like more stage managers, more cast members. And additionally, for things like that weekend where we were playing manager, bar staff, and trying to perform the show all at the same time, we were like, I feel like that calls for a raise or something. Like,
and were you getting paid when they changed the amount of shows that you were doing per week? Did you get the same pay for 1 show versus doing 5+ shows? How did they handle that?
So they, at the moment, they currently pay per performance. So
it is per performance.
Yes.
So your check changes with the workflow.
Yes. So that's why.
How can you live off of that?
Especially when it's so inconsistent. Actors would experience that. Maybe 1 month you'll be scheduled a whole bunch. Maybe 1 month they'll kind of decide, ooh, maybe we'll take you off for a little bit. And they have a long history of not being super clear as to why they may be taking you off of shows. Not a